Welcome to part one of the Game Objects project. This is a project we're going to be working on for a few weeks. You're going to do 5 or more objects here. So you can see here is the chair that we did. We started it in the class before. And you can use image planes to create your own objects if you like. But you can also just use regular photographic references. Like I have a photographic reference of Rey's lightsaber here from Star Wars. So if you want to do that, that's totally fine. So you don't have to use the image plane process, but you can if you like. So you can see here I've got a column, a barrier, chair, oil drum, and a crowbar. So that's a nice render I have here. I'm going to minimize so you can see the whole scene here. So in this tutorial, I'm just basically going to go over the project and start the process of some modeling objects in Maya here. So the first thing, you can use image planes. I'll open that up again for the chair that we have here. So you can use that process. I'm going to turn that off though. It's a good idea to keep everything on their own layers, and you want everything to be set kind of to scale in reference to each other. So you can see how small the crowbar is in reference to the oil drum or the column base here or the chair here. Now this column could be a lot larger. I'm just thinking about a smaller column. I could scale it up, and that's one of these things that once you create it, you can scale it up or down, and I'm going to show you how to do that later on. So basically, let's start with some modeling. So I'm going to turn off these guys. Just again, it's a great idea to put them on their own layers. I even have the lights on their own layer and a barrier here. And we're going to start fresh. I'm going to show you what I kind of started here with this lightsaber. And basically, this process here is pretty much to create this is just extrude and scale. So that's all I've kind of done with a cylinder. And I'll open up the Rey image here real quick. You can kind of see Rey's lightsaber here. Now it doesn't have quite all the details yet, and that's okay. I'm just thinking about the overall simple form. It doesn't have these little bits here, which would be the simple images here, these little bits that would be added later. It doesn't have the wrapping and other things on here, but we're going to add that later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start fresh. So I'm going to actually scale down my scene here just so we can have both images in here at the same time, kind of revealed. And I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to add a new cylinder to start it off. So if we go to the polygon modeling set, it's the cylinder I'm going to add here, and I'm going to hit F to frame in on it. And basically I'm going to go to the inputs, and the only thing I'm going to change in the polycylinder input here is I'm going to go down and add 2 caps for the divisions. And what that'll do is that'll give me the ability to click in here and select these little components here. I'm going to open up the modeling toolkit here by clicking on this little icon. I'm going to scale in a little bit just to give us a little more room. And if you right click, go to face mode, you could check on each of these faces. Again, it's the same as clicking on the face here. So if you're in object mode, you can click on face. So you may see me do the right click every once in a while. But what I ultimately want to do is grab these guys and sort of scale in and get a little bit in there. But first, before I do that, I might shrink this whole thing down to kind of scale it to one little unit here. I'm just going to hit the R key for the scale tool and do that, and just kind of squish it down like that, just as a starting point. And now what I want to do is kind of pull this bottom section up. So I can do that by going to face mode, and I could sit there and hold shift key and click on each of these, but I can click on the paintbrush tool and just literally paint across. This is a really cool tool for painting faces in there, and if I hit number 4, you can see it doesn't go through the object, which is really nice. So then you just click out with the arrow when you're done, and then I'm going to scale it out just a little bit. I'm going to hit the R key and scale out a little bit, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the W key and basically just pull down the arrow here. So just to kind of give it like that sort of bevel quality. I'm not even going to extrude it, just kind of have it out as an end point there. Now I'm going to continue on the other side here. I'm going to grab the paintbrush, again paint these little areas here, click on this tool, and now we're going to start doing some extruding. So I'm going to scale it just a little bit. Oops, I'm going to hit Control Z. It looks like I still have the bottom one selected. So if this happens, to deselect something, you can hold the Control key and drag over it with the rectangular selection and basically deselect that. So what I'm going to do is scale this out a little bit to about there. And you can see if I zoom in here on this, let me click in here to the zoom part, zoom in on just this little area here. You get a lot of ins and outs here with these little slices. And so for each of those sections, we're going to basically extrude up, scale out, and then extrude up, and then scale out, and so forth. So you're basically going to use the extrude tool a lot. So extrude tool is right here in the modeling toolkit. So again, I'm just going to click on it, and immediately all I'm going to do is drag up with the blue arrow. Always try and grab with that blue arrow. Don't grab in the center here because that'll move all directions. You just want to move in that what they call the normal direction. Just a little bit. These are real thin divisions, so I'm going to keep it really tight here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Extrude tool again, or you can use the hotkey for the last action, which is what I'm going to do, which is the G key. So that's G, and I'm just going to click the G key. And then immediately I'm going to click on the blue cube, and then click on the blue center cube. So that's what that does. It goes into scale mode, and I can scale it out. You can see it as it comes out here. And what I'm going to do is kind of scale it out to approximately the same size as what's there. In fact, if I want it to be exact same size, I can go into another view by tapping the spacebar and go to my top view here. And basically just grab that center until it lines up perfectly with the previous lines. Now I don't necessarily have to have it exactly perfectly lined up, but something like that looks good. And then you can see it's a thin plane now, so we have to add some divisions to it, some thickness. So again, extrude. So I'm just going to hit the G key again and grab the blue arrow and pull up. So you can see the process here. It's very, very easy. It's basically extrude up or scale in. So that's basically all I have to do. And you just have to kind of be aware of it. If you hit extrude too many times, you might get multiple faces in here. So that's a common error with new users to Maya. So just be careful. Slow everything down. And so I'm going to hit G again, click on Scale Tool, Scale In, something like that. Hit G again, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull up a little bit. I'm going to make these really tight, so I'm not going to pull out too much because I just want this idea of like a little separation between here. And then again, hit G, click on the Scale Tool on the top cube, and then click on the bottom one and kind of scale out. This time I may want to make it a little bit smaller, or I may make it about the same size. It's up to you on that. Looks like they're about the same size here, these two rings here. So I'm going to go to the top view here. In fact, I'll go to the top orthographic view and kind of scale up to make sure it's perfectly lined up. And again, I'm just tapping spacebar in each view to maximize or to go out. If you accidentally change the view in any of these, you can click on the 4 view here, and then you can click on perspective to go back to the perspective view. So here I am, and at this point it gets thin, so I'm going to hit G again and extrude up. Now then I'm going to hit G again. This time I'm going to scale out. So instead of in, so I'm going to click the blue cube and click this and kind of pull it out a little bit. So this is the bigger part right here. And then I'm hitting G again, bring it up. And then there is a lip here. And then so I'm not going to worry about this extrusion inwards yet. I'm just going to focus on the overall form. So I'm going to work with this next one. So I'm going to hit G again, click on the scale tool, scale in, and then hit G again. And G again is the hotkey for the last action. So again, that's like clicking on the extrude each time, in case you're wondering again. So I'm going to hit G again, click on the blue cube, scale out. And this one, I do want it to be about the same size as the other one. So again, I'll go to the top view here and just kind of scale it out so it lines up. And then hit G again, and this time bring it up to give me a little thickness. Now I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of finish off at the end here, just to give you an idea here. So the next one I'm going to hit G, and then I'm going to scale in a little bit, and then I'm just going to pull up with the blue arrow here. And that line here is basically right here where it sort of like tapers in. And at that point, I'd probably scale it in even a little bit more. So click the blue and scale a little bit more. And then at this point, if I hit G again and pull up, this would represent this larger section here. So after I pull it up to a certain amount, I'd have to scale it out so it flares out a little bit like that. But you can see the whole process here. Basically, it's just scaling in and out and extruding upwards. As long as you keep that consistent, it's relatively easy to create something like a lightsaber. Now, the smaller parts, I'll show you a final version of this later on. But like, you may want to do some individual extrusions with the pieces. I recommend doing all that at the end, so I wouldn't do that right now. So if we go to my channel box here and turn on the other one, in fact, let me turn that off for a sec. Let me just hide this one temporarily and then turn this one back on. You can see in here I've done an extrusion right here for this little bit here. So it's good to do it after you kind of have the base form, and the reason why is because it breaks up the edge loops, the edge flow, and so do those extrusions either in or out afterwards. And but now you can kind of see how the whole process will work. I'll add some more division at the top here. Having some good references. This is something I found online. Skywalker, I guess, is the official Star Wars sort of lightsaber for Rey's lightsaber at the final in the movie. So it's got these little diamond pieces that have to model one and kind of rotate around. Maybe I'll show you that in the tutorial, but basically that's a startup, and this is the first tutorial in this modeling process. Try and keep it simple in the beginning, all your base forms, and then think about adding smaller parts. If you think larger to smaller, it's always a great way to work in terms of modeling and just having good references to look at. So until next time, we'll see you soon in these tutorials on the game objects. Cheers!